Thank you. All right. So, good evening. I call to order the January 8th, 2026 meeting of the Town of Berthoud Planning Commission. It's the tradition of the Planning Commission. All right, that's akin to the Stranger Things episode, right? Okay. All right. So it's the tradition of the Planning Commission to start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. All right, thank you. You know, at this time, Ms. Manzo, will you please call the roll of the Berthoud Planning Commission?
Commissioner Hoffmans?
Here.
Commissioner
Could I
Filio?
get the volume up a little,
I
please?
can hear a fly fart and I can't hear this.
There are hearing assisted devices
I have
over
them in my ear.
over here. If we turn the volume up any higher, we're afraid that it's going to create that disturbance.
Please.
We'll pause for just a moment so we can make sure everyone can hear.
We didn't realize this was going to be an issue.
Can everyone else hear Emery speaking now?
Just barely.
Just barely? All right, I'll try to put it a little bit closer.
Let me do
Is that better?
Keep speaking.
Keep speaking so you can. Is that better?
Give us a little monologue.
Okay, there we go. I
All
just
right.
wanted to make sure that we could hear as
You can
others
also
speak.
move seats,
When
there's
I
seats
Yeah,
turn
in
on
the
this
front.
They could come up in front.
You do. I'm sorry, she's ill.
Starts.
I can't sit next, I'm sorry.
I turn on the
I
captions.
have immune issues and I know that this woman is ill. I can't sit any closer to her.
We understand. All right, so let's proceed then with our meeting. Let's turn to the December 11th meeting minutes that are before us for review. Are there any questions or changes, commissioners, to the December 11th Planning Commission minutes?
No.
No.
All right, if not, then I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion.
Commissioner Pond moves to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Commissioner, and I still always say your name wrong,
Filio.
Filio, sorry, Bryce. Commissioner Filio seconds the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.
Aye, okay, opposed, nay, or any abstentions. Great. Okay, thank you, commissioners. We have one land use application for public hearing tonight, so let me provide some procedural background before we delve into that item. The members of the Planning Commission are volunteers, and like many of you in the audience, we are residents of Berthoud. Our duty is to review application materials that are provided, hear public testimony, hear from the applicant, and then discuss the matters before us as they comply with the Land Use Code review procedures. In doing so, please note that the code and other regulatory prescriptions provide certain criteria for approval that we must consider. We have staff in attendance tonight to provide us with presentations of the land use items and to lay out criteria and parameters for approval and to answer the commissioner's questions. Once the staff has completed their presentation, and the applicant will be permitted to provide information about the application. After that presentation, the public hearing will be open. If you intend to speak during the public hearing tonight, please sign in on the sheet that's in front of the room on this kind of little black table up front here. We gain insight from the information and viewpoints the public provides. Your input is welcomed and appreciated. If you wish to speak tonight, you will be recognized by me. When you come to the lectern here, Please provide us with your name and spell any uncommon names so that the record will accurately reflect your comments. And then provide your address. Okay, so name, spell it if you need to, if it's complex, and then provide your address. We ask that you keep your comments relevant to the matters being discussed, and we ask that you direct your comments to the members of the Planning Commission and not to the applicant or other speakers. You will have 3 minutes to speak. As stated, tonight we have one land use application to be heard. To recap the process, note that staff will introduce each item followed by a presentation, and then the applicant will make a presentation. After that presentation, I will open the public hearing. Okay. To begin our agenda tonight, Ton Hillebrand, who's planning manager for the Berthoud Community Development Department, will present the land use item on our agenda. This item is Fickle Farm number 5, Fickle Farm 5th filing, preliminary plat. For our audience, note that the preliminary plat is the second public step in the process. Ms. Hillebrand?
Do we still need to take roll call, Madam Chair?
We did.
I think we only got through.
Oh, that's right, we had to stop.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you for reminding me. Could we please proceed with the roll and then we'll go forward?
Yes. Commissioner Hoffmans?
Here.
Commissioner Filio?
Here.
Commissioner Pond?
Here.
Commissioner Semendalis? Absent. Commissioner Sigmund?
Here.
Vice Chair Smith?
Here.
Chair Anderson?
Here. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Forgot that we had to- Are we okay? Just a few technical difficulties. Are we good? Okay.
then the fourth phase is the post-approval actions, and this is when final documents are reported. They prepare any final, in this particular case, final plat application materials, and also things such as development agreements. So this slide then is the public hearing process. And so, as Chair Anderson stated, I will provide a presentation that will generally introduce the application and the request, and from the perspective of the development code and how it's meeting the requirements of the development code as well as our master plan and comprehensive plan. Then following staff presentation, there will be an applicant presentation, and then following that, Chair Anderson will open it to public comment or the public hearing portion of this meeting. Each citizen will have an opportunity to speak and will have up to 3 minutes to provide their public testimony. Once all public testimony has been provided, Chair Anderson will close public comment, and then the Planning Commission could ask questions of staff as well as the applicant, and the applicant will then also have an opportunity to provide a rebuttal to any of the comments provided during public testimony. And then the fourth process, Chair Anderson and the Planning Commission will then go into discussion and make a decision or vote on the item at hand. So again, this slide is more intended for the public joining us today. So this slide was provided by CERSA, who's the organization that provides insurance for the town. This information is provided, again, for those who are less familiar with the Planning Commission and the role that they have in decision making for the town. So Planning Commission is a quasi-judicial body, and their role is to arrive at the meeting unbiased, do not make pre-hearing statements, they do not engage in pre-hearing buzz, they do not engage in ex parte communication, and really the expectation is that the Planning Commission sends the public and any public comments to staff, and they direct public comment to staff. They do not participate if they will have financial or other personal interest in the matter at hand. They do not sign any pro or con petitions. They ask questions to seek clarification. And the Planning Commission do not bring facts or evidence that aren't part of the testimony into the hearing. And they are not a witness, persecutor, advocate, or investigator. And on the second half of the slide, there's also information on decisions and how those are made. I will not read through those, but those again are presented for those who are less familiar with this process. Sorry, I think I lost my arrow. Bear with me. So now, for the item of the evening, this is the Pickle Farm Fifth Filing Project, which consists of 2 properties, Tract A and Tract B, totaling 14.5 acres, which are located south of Mountain Avenue at the intersection of Pyramid and Depot Streets. The Tract A and Tract B are currently zoned UR, or urban residential, and this current zone district was approved by the board in November of 2024, so just recently. The property is designated urban residential district on the future land use map. In addition, a portion of the 2 tracts is within the Mountain Avenue corridor, specifically the Berthoud East Character District, as denoted by the hash marking on the map. For the Berthoud Trail, 2 trails are planned within the area of the proposed project. The regional trail, as denoted by the dashed blue line, and neighborhood trail, denoted by the dashed orange line. And the Pickle Farm Fifth Filing properties are adjacent to Pioneer Park, as represented here in our open space master plan. The applicant is requesting preliminary plat approval to create residential development consisting of 104 townhome lots and 50 paired home or duplex lots. And an important note, as you may be thinking this project is very familiar, it is because this is the applicant's second application for the Pickle Farm Fifth preliminary plat. The first application was withdrawn by the applicant following the November 13th, 2025 Planning Commission, and it was prior to the town board hearing. So as a reminder, and for those joining us this evening that are a little less familiar with the land division process, preliminary plat is the second step in the overall land division process. So preliminary plat takes about 12 to 18 months to complete on average, and then following preliminary plat, This step takes about 8 to 12 months on average to complete. Final plat is the step necessary to actually create the legal lots. Following final plat, the applicant moves into pre-construction steps, which include such things as grading and infrastructure installation, and then on to building permits for residential developments such as this. So if this were a commercial development, from final plat, it would move on to either use by special review or site plan review approval prior to then building permits. So Fickle Farm fifth filing received neighborhood master plan and rezone approval, or in other words, completed step 1 in November of 2024. The approved neighborhood master plan includes 115 townhome lots and 50 paired home or duplex lots, as well as a pocket park. The approved neighborhood master plan is shown on the screen and is included in your packets as an attachment for reference. The proposed preliminary plat is consistent with the approved neighborhood master plan with 2 minor modifications. So the first minor modification is the size of the stormwater detention area located at the curve of Pyramid Bay Street and Bermuda Road. This detention area was expanded as a result of a preliminary drainage study to accommodate stormwater flows. And the second minor modification is a reduction in the overall density of the development. The approved neighborhood master plan proposed again 115 townhome lots and 50 paired home lots, while this preliminary plat request proposes 104 townhomes and 50 paired home lots. The overall density has been reduced from 165 total units to 154. These modifications do not change the overall layout of the development, road network, or lot configuration, and while the density has changed, a reduction in density is not considered a substantial change. Therefore, the preliminary plat is considered to be consistent with the approved neighborhood master plan. So this new Fickle Farm fifth preliminary plat application completed 1 round of referral agency and staff review. This slide reflects those staff and agencies that receive a referral request and are those typically assigned a review for each and every preliminary plat application that the town receives. In reviewing application materials, each reviewing party is expected to either confirm they have no concern or they provide comments and requested revisions based upon code requirements. So each subsequent submittal made by the applicant is then expected to address the requested revisions of that review. In this particular case, all requests for revisions made by staff and referral agencies were adequately addressed, and therefore the preliminary plat was allowed to advance to public hearing. So prior to hearing, every application completes public noticing requirements. So for preliminary plat, noticing is required to be completed 15 days prior to the planning commission hearing. You may be wondering what happens to those comments received as part of the previous application once the application was withdrawn. So comments received as part of a previous application remain with the public record for that specific application. They do not move forward with a new application. So this applies to not only applications that are withdrawn, but also those that are approved or denied. So a new application is reviewed on its own merits. And so therefore, previous comments, whether made by staff, referral agencies, or the community, are not valid to the new application. So essentially, the application is given its fair due process. So the community is given a new opportunity to provide comment on the new application. So that would be through the postcard notification or through the public testimony we will receive this evening. So several public comments were received earlier this morning, or throughout the day, really, and I will
Okay, commissioners, questions?
I just want to clarify, because I think it's just a typo in the staff report, but under the proposal section, you say they're creating 104 paired home duplex lots and 50 townhomes. That's actually flipped, correct? I mean, you said it already tonight, but I wanted to make sure if anybody read that staff report, there wasn't confusion. Okay. Perfect, thank you.
This might be better posed to the applicant, but was the reduction in density just a result of the drainage area expansion?
Commissioners, other questions of staff? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hildebrand. Okay, applicant presentation. Happy New Year.
This property is located just south of Mountain and also north of the existing Pickle Farm neighborhood. If you're familiar with Pioneer Park, it's located just above that park. And we are here tonight to talk about the preliminary plat. This is the last tract of the Pickle Farm subdivision to develop. It's approximately 14 acres with urban residential zoning. It has always been envisioned for residential development, and we are proposing 104 townhomes, and 50 duplex units, consistent with the neighborhood master plan that you guys had seen several months ago. The plan proposes a mix of townhomes and duplex units, with the townhomes being located closer to Mountain Avenue and the duplexes being located closer to the county parcels and the existing homes. We're proposing 2 pocket parks. One is more active and the other is more passive. So the first pocket park you'll see over on the east side, that's our more active pocket park. And I don't have a mouse, it doesn't show up on your screen, so I'm going to use the mouse here. And then over kind of in the central area, that's where you'll see the more passive pocket park. So kind of right in the middle are those 2 pocket parks. So they're well distributed within the site. We are proposing low water landscape for the entirety of the subdivision, and we've integrated more shrub and bed plantings.
Kristen, can you speak just a little bit louder so our audience can hear you?
The mic isn't on as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
We are proposing low water landscape for the entirety of this subdivision, and we have integrated shrub bed planting along Mountain Avenue Parkway as well, which is going to lower water demands for this neighborhood. Along Mountain Avenue, we are using large planting beds to create year-round visual interest and buffering along the regional trail, because we are proposing that regional trail along Mountain Avenue as well to be in conformance with your parks and trail plan. This preliminary plat is very similar to the neighborhood master plan. As Tom discussed, we had a reduction in density, and we had a little bit of an increase in the size of the detention pond that's centrally located along the curve on Pyramid Peak Avenue. And those were about the only changes that we made. Okay. So this is just zooming in on the parks so that we can see them a little bit better. In the center, the park shown at the top is our passive park that's located in that central permanent cornhole, a turf lawn area, so just a little bit quieter area to hang out if you don't want to hang out right next to play equipment. So, and we do like to try and have those different types of park areas available. We just find it enhances the neighborhood when you can provide a different experience in different places in the neighborhood. We will be extending a neighborhood trail from Pioneer Park up to Mountain Avenue as well, so that it connects to that regional park, so that we have good connectivity between the existing trail system and the new proposed trail system. So when we were here with the neighborhood master plan, you guys had some questions for us at our interface with Mountain Avenue, and so we did put together a cross section so that you could see what that looks like a little bit more. So you'll notice the landscape buffer between the road and the regional trail. So that is a larger size buffer, and it will be planted, so we're going to have some height, some different plant material in there. It's not going to be just a turf lawn with a tree in it, so it's going to help create some more barrier between the road and the regional trail. You'll notice the 10-foot trail that's in there. Then we do have additional landscaping on the south side of that trail, and then we have private yard landscaping as well within the setback area from the lot line to the proposed townhomes. We are also including open meadow fencing for the townhome units, and so there will be a physical block between the regional trail and the road and those residents' private as well. Okay, so another question that came up when we were here for neighborhood master plan was parking for the neighborhood. So we did include a parking summary as part of this presentation and as part of our packet that went into staff to review and comment on. So overall, we are exceeding the parking requirements for this subdivision by 106 spaces. The chart gets into the details of how all of the parking is calculated, but there are 2-car garages for all of these units. We do have the required visitor parking as well. And I did want to note that we have dispersed the visitor parking throughout the site. So rather than putting it all in one place, we have about 8 different locations where we've included that visitor parking, just to make sure it's easy for folks to get from that parking to whoever they may be visiting. There is, above and beyond what you see on the screen, there is additional parking as well. So all of these roads allow for on-street parking. We do not count that as part of our parking totals. So when I tell you that we are exceeding parking by 106 spaces, in addition to that, there is on-street parking as well. So there is quite a bit of parking located in this area to accommodate residents. We did include our traffic impact conclusions. I'm not sure if you wanted to go through this. I know we went through this in some detail at our last meeting, but let me know if you want me to invite our traffic engineer up to the podium. Otherwise, I'll pass on it.
I'm going to ask you to do that.
Okay.
I think it's important. It's important to have that on the record and to be for us to make sure we still understand it.
My name is Caleb Peter with Fox Hill Transportation Group. We are at 1580 Logan Street in Denver. So the traffic study evaluated 165 single-family attached homes, which exceeds the being proposed. So it errs on the conservative side for traffic. We have a few recommendations in here. So reducing the speed to 35 miles an hour along Highway 56 between the future roundabout to the east and the current roundabout. Construct a single lane roundabout that's more of a farmstead development issue, and that's the roundabout to the east. Highway 56 and County Line Road widen to 2 lanes for eastbound and westbound, and that's a long-term improvement, so in our 20-year scenario. And then Highway 56 and First Street, and this is due to background traffic growth. We modeled adding an eastbound right turn bypass lane at the roundabout. But I'm happy to answer any more traffic questions you have. I'll turn it back over to Kristen.
Commissioners, questions about the traffic study?
I don't remember the 2-lane discussion previously, and so I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit more clarity on the timeline. Like, what does long term mean in this context?
Yeah, so long term is generally at least 20 years into the future.
Okay.
And it's based on our best projections, knowing that things can change between now and then.
Thanks.
I was going to ask you to define near term as well. Are we talking less than 20 years, 5 years?
Yeah, near term is usually 3 to 5 years. The target is once this is occupied and generating traffic.
Okay, so you're saying once the development is projected to be concluded in like 2028, then you're saying, so maybe 3 years that would happen. Okay. So near term has 35 miles per hour, so that'll be interesting. Okay. Any other?
And 35 miles per hour is a lot more context sensitive to traffic between two roundabouts. You really don't want traffic knowing can go roundabout very fast or trying to speed up between roundabouts.
And as we know, I believe we asked this question before, but this takes into consideration what's happening with what I like to call Farmstead 2, which I think they're now selling homes in, and then potentially Farmstead 3 as well.
That's
Okay.
correct, Commissioner. Yeah, we included all of their traffic projections in our background traffic growth.
Questions, comments, Commissioners? Great, thank you.
So that brings us to the last slide. It is the final phase of the subdivision, as I mentioned, and we're excited to see this come together. Anytime we can see a community kind of have that final build out and be complete, it's great for all the residents that live there. It's nice for the community to see these things finally developed. The plan is in conformance with the municipal code, the zoning, and the comprehensive plan, and it's also consistent with the neighborhood master plan. And so we are requesting a decision.
I have one, or I guess one concern, and I have the landscape plan pulled up, and this is it. When you did the cross section along Mountain Avenue, you show that there's plantings between the trail and the roadway, and then there's trees on the south side of the path, and then there's private landscape. That's true west of your entry road. Why east do you not have a single tree in front of any of those other townhomes? And I also noticed that on the landscape plan, the plantings along Mountain Avenue in between the path and the roadway are just kind of periodic. So they're not. The cross section is captured at a point where it's the highest, but there's a whole section where there's none.
No, those are great questions. So the right-of-way area in that area is existing, obviously, and there are significant number of utilities that are located within that right-of-way. And this happens sometimes for the final phase of developments that come in. Sometimes there are so many utilities that there isn't sufficient room to plant trees and meet the required separation requirements. So anytime we show a tree on the plan, we have separation requirements from all of the utilities, whether they be fiber optic, gas, sewer, water. Those are the biggest separations that we're required to hold. And so in those cases, we're putting the trees on the back side of the walk, the trail on the south side, because there isn't sufficient room to include them within the tree lawn area and meet the separation requirements. So that's the tree component. Does that
So-
make sense?
Yes, except the ones on the west side of the entry road are also behind that. So I'm wondering, there's no ability to do that same thing on the east side in front of those townhomes?
So anywhere we don't have trees in right of way is because we have utilities that permit us.
Okay, so there is all in that, everything east has utility conflicts. And there's no space to put them on the private landscape side?
So we try to put them on the south side of the trail, so we have some trees that are outside of private, but there will probably be trees within the private landscape as well. And I think, Tom, are trees required as part of the private yard landscaping?
Generally, we encourage, yes, trees to be in private landscaping. However, we don't have regulations for residential private property.
Okay. And on the landscape plans, you don't see any private yard landscaping. So
Okay.
So there will be additional plant material to help with all of that. But yeah, we put trees in right away. They're required, but also they make streets so much nicer. So we put trees anytime we can. Anytime you see that there is not a tree, the only reason for that to happen is because there are utility poles.
Thank you for clarity.
There's no other exception for trees within the right of way. And we are showing, it's kind of an undulating planting bed, so we are interspersing that with native seed as well. So it won't be planted the entirety of that frontage. It's a pretty big frontage, and so we're trying to create these pockets and sort of view corridors through, and just sort of that visual interest where we go from a little bit higher to a little bit lower. In general, the planting will be low enough so we're not creating visual barriers for drivers, but we're still trying to create some of that interest with height and plant material as we move down Mountain Avenue.
Thank you.
That's my favorite stuff to talk about.
Other questions, commissioners? If not, I have some. Okay. First thing I wanted to ask about was we had questions in the prior hearing about the detention area that was now set aside from different than the neighborhood master plan. Can you describe that detention area for us, and will it have water in it? Will it be something that could be a public nuisance? We talked about that before, but I kind of want to go through that again. I want to hear that again. Have that back in my head again.
Of course, and it's a really good question. So, no, it will not have water in it, and no, it will not be a nuisance. So, I wanted to start by just saying there's two different kinds of ponds that you'll see out there. There's a retention pond, which holds water and will look like a pond. There are no retention ponds planned for this property. And then there is a detention pond. But we are required to release that water at a standardized rate. This is not just a town of Berthoud requirement, it's a state requirement. So every project everywhere has a detention pond. Whether you notice them or not is a whole other thing. So some detention ponds, are very visible and they may be deeper and look more significant. Some detention ponds are really shallow and you may not even notice. You may just think that it's a field in your neighborhood, where all the kids are playing, and it's actually a detention pond. So we did have to increase the size of the detention pond from the neighborhood master plan, what we had shown on that, to the preliminary plat, and that's not unusual at all. The neighborhood master plan is a very well-vetted concept plan. It does have some very high-level engineering, kind of at that 30,000-foot level, but we're not getting into the details at neighborhood master plan. So then when we get to that preliminary plat and we're really digging into the engineering, that's when we find like, hey, we need some more space to make this work, to get the volume that we need. That's why we reduce some of the lots and increase the size of the pond. For the most part, it will be dry all of the time. When we have those storm events, you may see a little bit of water in the bottom of it, and it will be releasing at regular intervals. And I think they're typically set to have emptied 72 hours. Within 72 hours. I'm patting myself on the back for remembering that number today. That's totally outside of my wheelhouse. So that is the story of the detention pond. Hopefully that answers your question. But if you have follow-ups, I'm happy to answer them.
I also wanted to make a comment that we had talked about the landscaping and maybe on private lots, but I'm guessing that if there is an HOA that it may require certain types of trees and that kind of thing. So
Private lot landscaping?
yes,
There are code requirements for private lot landscaping to make sure that people are at least hitting minimums, but then they're not coming in and just putting rock down. And of course, any resident is always welcome to make their private lot landscaping as lush as they would like to.
I'm guessing there'll probably be maybe some HOA restrictions as well, and what has to be there. But yeah, okay. All right. Anyone else have questions or comments? No. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are at that stage in our process where I will open the public hearing, but I want to first ask if there's anyone who wants to sign up to speak that has not signed up to speak, has not signed the paper on the black table. Anyone? Okay. Thank you, Tom. All right. Now, let me remind you before I open the public hearing that you will have 3 minutes to speak. We ask that you direct your comments to the Planning Commission. Thank you for those. And that there will, after we close the public hearing, we will consider what you've discussed. We may ask questions of staff. We may ask questions of the applicant that align with some of the testimony that you've given. All right, with that, I am going to open the public hearing. And the first person that I have listed is Pam, and excuse me if I butcher your last name, Pam Imler Cooper?
You said it perfectly.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Pam Imler Cooper, IMLER-COOPER. I live at 302 Victoria Street in Fickle Farm 1. My main concerns regarding the fifth filing still have to do with those detention ponds that they're getting ready to put in. We walked over to the park this morning and looked at the pond in the middle of the park. And it's not only a dangerous dive in, but the water level in there is very noticeable and seriously disgusting. You folks should go over there and look at it. And these detention ponds are going to drain into that one. Parking requirements. I realize that they are at 1.5 parking spaces per unit for the townhomes. My husband and I don't own 1.5 cars. I don't know anybody who does. And every double income family that I know owns 2 cars. Some of the lots, most of the double income, with the proposed lot sizes only being 20 feet wide for some of these townhomes, code requirements are that the inside dimensions of a 2-car garage be 20 by 20 feet. Inside. If the lot size is 20 feet, you guys do the math for the building construction. And a 20-foot long full-size truck will not fit inside a 20-foot garage and still be able to close the garage door. Third, the proposed minimum guest parking of 0.2 guest spaces is absurdly low and will quickly be taken by residents because they can't park 2 cars in their garages. So that overflow parking is all going to be taken up by residents themselves. It won't be visitor parking. There won't be a place for visitor parking. And if someone has an adult child that moves home, they have a car, and that exacerbates the problem. Lastly, the signatory pages in the plat application don't match the plat. The development size, over half an acre difference. Wrong minimum and maximum lot sizes. They don't agree. The plats and the signatory pages don't match. And wrong dimensions on the lot sizes. I mean, there are so many discrepancies for this development to go through as is would be a travesty. The application must be required to resubmit with accurate information that meets the current code. Please, no more code changes to accommodate the builders. All the developers need to meet our existing code and bring good neighbors into our community.
All right, thank you so much. You're at the 3-minute mark, but we do
Perfect, and I
appreciate-
came to the end. I timed it perfectly.
You were great. You met right at the end. Thank you.
Good evening.
All right.
My name's Jennifer Vanderzee, Vanderzee, and I live at 304 Victoria Street. I want
Just a second. Did you get that started? Usually we call you up.
Okay.
You got it started. Okay,
I'm a
thank
fast
you.
talker, so. All right. I just want to record my concerns about the Fickle Farms fifth proposal, specifically the northwest expansion, and you guys are calling it Tract A. I do support the growth and expansion of new
Can I
homes
stop
in
you for just a
Berthoud.
second? And let's give her a few more seconds. One thing I did want to mention to you is we did get comments. I think there were from some of them from you
Yeah,
today.
but most of the people didn't hear this.
Ma'am, hold on
Yeah.
a second. We did get comments from you today.
Yeah.
We have not had a chance to read them because
Okay.
the only written things that we get are things that are in our packet.
Okay, perfect.
We were sent, so we have not had a chance
That's
to
okay.
read it. So what I'm going to ask you to do, with some of your time,
Sure.
is to summarize the comments
Sure.
that you put in writing, so that
Sure.
we
I have
know
3
what-
minutes.
Know the gist of what that's in there.
Okay.
Can you add some time back under since I had?
So,
Thank you.
so I have 3 minutes.
Yes.
I can do this under 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm specifically talking about Track A, which is on the northwest expansion. I've lived here since 2007. We do love the small town feel of the neighborhood. These proposed townhome units, they would not be family friendly, no yards. Most young families today require 2 incomes and the need for 2 cars. The proposed high density townhomes are 20 by 71 lots, and they're inadequate for 2 parking spaces, double stall garage. And you know, she already talked about the 20 by 20 feet needed for a double stall garage. And this will create overflow congestion onto Welch Avenue. There's only one outlet out in Welch Avenue for this particular area. And I foresee safety issues for public services to access these high density dwellings due to increased congestion. And that's regardless of any preventative signage. I understand there was a traffic study done and fire safety sign off. And did they have the premise that these townhomes allowed 2 car parking? Because according to them, it's only 1.5. My main concern is a change to the city code that allowed a fraction of the 1,600 square feet minimum dwelling requirement only needed. This will open the floodgates to high density units, not only in our neighborhood, but the entire Berthoud. A 20 by 71 foot lot is not a like dwelling proposal to our neighborhood. The current high density townhome proposal has no transition away from our existing property neighborhood that are lower density lots, and it's not compatible. Townhomes stacked like cordwood without a transition away from our low density surrounding dwellings will further risk the small town feel of our neighborhood. The multiple proposed detention ponds adjacent to our backyard that are proposed don't count as an appropriate transition. We do love and enjoy the Pioneer Park neighborhood, and I have a concern and wonder if it will continue to enjoy it safely or if it will become at-risk hangout for illicit activities that come with high density housing. I believe the small town feel will be lost to this neighborhood and to the town of Berthoud if this proposal gets approved as is. In closing, your approval actions do affect our neighborhood, specifically by allowing minimal square foot housing codes that you have changed to conform this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so our next person would be John Vandersee. Now, John, I see that we just received comments from you today. So
Yes.
I am going to ask you to, since we haven't had a chance to read it, what we see again is what's in the packet that is
Okay.
posted for the public to see. We see it at the same time, so we wouldn't have had a chance to read this. So I'm going to ask you with your 3 minutes to please summarize some of what you've given us in your comments.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this matter with you. My name is John Vanderzee, Vanderzee, 304 Victoria Street. My father lived in our duplex for 20 years and really enjoyed this town. Upon his death, I acquired that duplex 20 years ago. Maintained it ever since. 2 of my daughters have lived there long term while they got their masters at Colorado State. Without a surprise, the most attractive part of Berthoud to my father as well as me is the small town feel of Berthoud. It's no surprise the Berthoud Neighborhood Master Plan references that as the #1 reason, most attractive feature of living in Berthoud. If you don't like that, you got Longmont, you got Loveland, you got other places to live. The Fickle Farm subdivision is a community of duplexes and single-family homes, moderately well built. Many of us have our homes set up for low maintenance, enjoy the quiet, slower pace of living here, yet convenient to all the nice small town amenities of Berthoud. Just as I've enjoyed this for the last 20 years, I'm hopeful that my kids will have the same experience for 20 years after I'm gone. This Fickle Farm fifth filing as presently proposed clearly jeopardizes the small town attraction that those of us in Berthoud now value. Upon approval, the townhouses on these extremely small lots with the obvious shortcomings for vehicle parking and street navigation would transform the Mountain Drive into one huge billboard. Welcome to the bedroom community of Berthoud. The absolute density of living in the proposed development is very out of place with the way Berthoud is presently structured and developed and enjoyed. If you want the townhome, apartment, bedroom community feel, it's more than accessible in Loveland or Longmont. It doesn't require that Berthoud somehow has to accommodate it. I'm not against development of the land, nor am I against property owners' rights. However, there are mechanisms and guardrails in place to prevent subsequent development from severely negatively impacting existing homes or value and the surrounding community. There are no complaints, I'm sure, if the development would propose a plan consistent with the surrounding community. Smaller single-family homes and duplexes. This has nothing to do with income or low-income housing. I've no complaints if they were to propose a mobile home park just like Blue Spruce right across the street on First Avenue. Beautiful place. There are at least two areas of particular concern with the fifth edition as presently proposed, clearly evident in plain view. The new development clearly proposes high-density townhomes immediately adjacent to at least 9 single-family homes in Fickle Farms. The proposed townhomes would have immediate and seriously negative effect on the value of these homes to the present homeowners. There is no gradual transition from one form of housing, the single-family housing, on separate lots, to another high-density townhomes. Just boom, there's your fence, there's a huge townhome. I believe the code requires some transition between housing types and certainly more than 20 feet across the fence. Additionally, somehow the 31 townhomes proposed in the northwest aspect of the development along Wild Grove Way would have only one ingress and egress route along Bing Cherry Lane. In those 31 townhomes, you could easily have 100 people living in these units with at least 2 vehicles per unit with garages that will not accommodate 2 present-day
Mr. Anderson,
vehicles.
your time is up, but
Okay.
we do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We do have one more person that's on the list here. Is Wade E. Cooper?
A little bit hot in here. Thank you for having me speak. My name is Wade E. Cooper. I'm a professional engineer, civil engineer for over 40 years. I live in Fickle Farm at 302 Victoria Street. And I'm concerned about the diminishing quality of life that this proposed development will have on the surrounding residents of Fickle Farm and Berthoud. This development proposes to more than quadruple lot densities around many of its adjacent residential neighbors. It will devalue existing property values due to undesirable townhomes, quadrupling population densities, and higher crime rates. These 20-foot wide lot townhomes would be undesirable and not meet the needs of a high percentage of households because they are all two-story with cramped, tunnel-like living conditions, common walls on both sides, inadequately sized garages for many households. Many households need 2 full-size car garages. It's extremely close to the noisy high traffic on Highway 56. Based on the many years of my experience, the majority of them are likely to become rental properties for short-term transient occupants. I say that because in 1979, I purchased my first home for $35,000 in Thornton, Colorado. It was a townhome in a 4-plex building with both 2-story and ranch homes, and it had much better amenities, better interior window lighting, no traffic noise, and better parking facilities than these proposed townhomes. After purchasing, the market deteriorated even after declining mortgage rates. I couldn't sell it for 8 years, and I sold it finally at a 17% loss, $29,000. These kind of low rental properties become rental havens for motorcycle bikers and drug dealers. And still, those units still are today low value and have those same occupant criteria. Let's go on to what's wrong with the NEP. The NEP and the plat do not meet 30-6-101I of the code. Specifically, they do not meet either the physical buffer or gradual density transition requirements for adjacent existing residential neighborhoods. Both of these are requirements. The proposed townhome lots range from 1420 to 1725 square feet, with the majority, 56%, being 1420 square feet. These townhome lots are adjacent to 12 single-family residential lots on their west and southwest perimeter. Those lots range from 1.21 acre at 444 First Street, then along Welch Avenue to the smallest on Pyramid Peak at 5469 square feet. I provided more details in other emails. They also abut an ag residence of nearly 3 acres to their east.
Mr. Cooper, you've met your time limit. Thank you. We really do appreciate your comments.
Okay, yeah, because I've sent way too many comments to even begin to cover them in 3 minutes. There's another code violation that they're not meeting.
Thank you, sir, we appreciate your comments. Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in the audience? No? All right. At this point, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, that brings us to our deliberations, commissioners. Do you have questions? I'm going to ask the applicant if they would like to come up and answer any of the questions or rebuttal on some of the comments.
Sure. Thank you very much. Just a couple of things I wanted to clarify. It was noted that there were 1.5 parking spaces per unit. There are actually 2-car garages for every unit that is on the site. In addition, there is visitor parking that does meet the code requirements, and then there is on-street parking as well. So we are in excess of parking requirements by 106 parking spaces.
What about that comment on the 20 feet size of the lots and required parking spaces? Yard spaces.
Sure. So the garages are all sized to industry standard. These are not uniquely sized garages. And so this is consistent on all projects. Some people choose to park their cars in their garages. Some people choose to use their garages for storage. I understand a lot of us drive big vehicles here. We have a small garage as well at home, and we have 2 big vehicles, and it's tight, but we fit in those parking spaces. So that really comes down to how folks choose to manage their own homes. We don't comment on that, but they do meet all of the industry standards. They are not uniquely sized or smaller than industry standard.
So, Ms. Turner, sorry,
yes.
just to reiterate the point. So every unit, whether it be a duplex or a townhome, has a 2-car garage.
Correct.
In this plan. And those garages are standard industry size.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Can you clarify there was a concern about the ability to fit the garage on the width of the lot? Yeah. Could you comment on that?
Sure. Garage sizes. So I think there were some numbers thrown out, and I defer to the architects on the buildings. And so they're not always typically 20 feet wide. I mean, some garages are 18 feet wide, but the garages are sized per industry standard. And I don't know, Chad, if you have more specifics on the garage sizes or not.
And I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but
code
possibly.
actually says 20 by 20.
Ma'am,
so-
we've concluded the public hearing. Thank you.
You're welcome to come up.
Good evening, Commission Chair and the rest of the Planning Commission. Chad Rodriguez with Truemark Homes, 8350 East Crescent Boulevard, Suite 450, Greenwood Village, Colorado, thank you for the opportunity to come up here and speak. I would go to Ton and Ann if there's a requirement on garage sizing. If there is, I'm unaware of it, and I'm going to apologize if there is, but I'm unaware of that in the code.
So for clarification, garage size is not a land use regulation, and therefore the development code does not stipulate sizes of garages. So again, we rely on builders to provide accurate industry standard for garages, and that's very similar. I mean, throughout architecture, design standards for a bathroom, the minimum lot size on the minimum size on a bathroom. So there are industry standards, and the expectation is that the builders who come forward meet industry standards.
And that's exactly what our intent is. Truth be known, a 2-car garage door is roughly 16 feet wide, which means you have to pull both cars in. I live in a garage that has a home that has a 2-car garage. I drive a truck. I back my truck in, tuck it in so I can get out of my driver's side door in the middle of the garage. But it goes back to, I think, what Kristen said, which is it's somewhat an industry standard that we have 20 feet of depth. Often people will have smaller cars. They have freezers in their garage that they put in front. They have different things like that. But I think at the end of the day, it's a consumer's choice to purchase the home with the size of the garage. Minimum lot widths actually in the code go down to 16 feet wide, which would never meet a garage requirement of 20 foot wide. We have townhomes that we're building in other areas that do have single cars. Some of them are tandems, or they have an option to add another room and a bathroom on the first floor. So we leave options in there like that. But at the end of the day, we're building townhomes down the road in Erie that have same garage makeup. So it is an industry standard. What people choose to drive, etc., I don't think has a play into it. They make the choice to purchase the home. We don't make that choice for them and force them to live there by any means. And so I leave it up to a consumer choice. We're providing a product that meets the recent, I forget what it's called, I have it sitting back there, but the housing plan that was just approved last year that I believe a lot of the members of the Planning Commission Board had a part in. And it was recognized in there that townhomes were a needed housing product type within the town of Berthoud. We're attempting, one, we're meeting the code, we're meeting the zoning, we're meeting our neighborhood master plan, and we're also meeting what you guys identified in your housing assessment that is needed in the town of Berthoud. Furthermore, if you look at it, the number of dual-income households and single-income households, the charts in there show over 50% of the people only have 2 people living in their homes for all the respondents you received in that study. So I just want to make sure I could update you with some information that was produced and paid for by the town of Berthoud. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then the only other thing that I wanted to address was comments about fire. So fire is a referral agency as part of these reviews. All of the comments that we received from them were addressed to the point that they said all of our comments are resolved and we have no further comments. So they were involved with the layout, making sure that they have appropriate access and safety to all the units.
There were some comments about the detention pond, and you had mentioned that you had mentioned certain standards and how it would, any water would flow out within 72 hours and that kind of thing. And is that because of the size and how it's surfaced and that kind of thing? I mean, what leads you to believe? I mean, what causes those numbers to happen? In other words, what's behind that 72 hours of where those will be drained?
Sure, they're designed that way specifically. So they are designed to not hold water indefinitely. So that it will not be a pond. It will be dry except for short periods of time when we have a big rainstorm or a snow melt or something like that. And there are engineering requirements that they are required to release water at a specific rate within a specific period of time. Colorado has all sorts of very complicated water laws that come into play as well. So you can't hold on to water for too long of a period of time. So it's really intended to create safe development to make sure that you're capturing that water with more impervious surface in the area, you're holding it appropriately, you're releasing it not too quickly so that you're not creating any kind of impact on anyone downstream of you. So there should be no change for anyone downstream of you. And you're also not holding water longer than you should.
You mentioned
For state
impervious
standards.
surface. Will this particular pond have some type of impervious surface?
No, I mean impervious surfaces that come with development overall. So when you put in roads and houses, you're creating more impervious surface in that area. And so we need to capture the water from those areas in the ponds.
Okay.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, if I may, some of the reference to the pond in Fickle Farms was also made to the non-potable pond. And that is very different than a detention facility, which is used for stormwater management, versus the pond that's existing that's used to hold the non-potable water system. They're two very different ponds.
There seemed to be an impression that the detention pond in this application would drain to the non-pot pond. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I mentioned that there was a concern raised that the detention pond proposed in this application would drain to the non-potable water pond that is currently holding standing water. And there was testimony that that was a concern in the neighborhood already, and that the drainage of additional water would exacerbate this problem. Does one of the engineers from the applicant want to address this, or maybe town staff?
And I guess if I could add to this, because kind of the same question, when I heard the comment, I thought it had to do with the condition of the retention pond that's down there and the quality of the water. So I was going to ask who's responsible for the maintenance, because I assume this is going to drain towards that, but that's secondary. I mean, that's, yes, it will, but who is responsible for the maintenance of the retention pond that this will drain towards?
And to add to that, for like just clarification, like drain and like releasing the water, is that like through like just being absorbed through the soil, or is it like runoff surface water for that release mechanism?
Or is it a pipe with a restrictor?
That's what I was wondering, if there was something else within the pond.
At least three questions.
At least three. I'll try to remember them all. Justin Beckner with Civil Works, 4025 Automation Way, Suite B2, Fort Collins. Thank you, Planning Commission. We appreciate it. On the detention pond, we'll start with the release. We'll go backwards. We'll start with the last question and move to the first question. It is a pipe that is at the bottom of the detention pond. There's a restrictor plate on it, and then there's an overflow that you get more as you get into a higher event. So the release rate at the bottom is really for water quality. Then you release at a 2-year event, and then really a 100-year event. So there's kind of different rates as you go through to drain the pond. There are two of the ponds, the two that are furthest west, that are going to drain into the existing Pioneer Park non-pot pond. That pond is designed so if the water surface, irrigation surface is at where it's supposed to be, this water will flow in and flow right out, because there is an outlet from the Pioneer Park pond that goes down and into the farmstead development through it, and then goes down to the Little Thompson River. So this water doesn't really change what happens in that non-pot pond. It
So
just
this-
kind of flows through
Okay.
and
So this-
cleans it up.
yeah, this detention pond will flow into the non-pot water, but it shouldn't change the depth of
It
that.
shouldn't change the depth unless that pond's sitting lower than it's supposed to. So, which could happen at certain times, but isn't very likely, especially during the irrigation season, because they tend to keep it pretty close to where it needs to be. And was there another question? I'm trying to remember.
Who's responsible for maintenance of this?
So the Pioneer Park pond is a city pond, because they're a non-pot system. So they are responsible for that. For the detention ponds within the development, that would be the HOA. So.
Is it fair to say that if there is a concern about the current state of the non-pot pond, that would be a concern for staff separately?
Definitely, if someone has a concern about the non-potable pond, they can definitely contact our operations team.
Sorry, ma'am, we've already concluded the public hearing at this point.
Just one comment on the non-pot pond. During the summer, they tend to run an aerator in the pond, which keeps it clean. When you get into the winter, you typically don't run the aerator. And so at that point, and that's that fountain that shoots up. And then you tend to get a little more algae, especially in a season like this where we've been warmer than normal in the fall. So just something to kind of be aware of, that would be a little more typical in a winter, fall, early spring situation. And then as you get into the summer, when they're bringing air into it, you don't have those same issues.
One other concern that was expressed with these kinds of ponds is the steepness of the slope that is presumably adjacent to sidewalk in many cases.
Yep.
So for this particular retention pond that's being proposed, how is the steepness determined, and what is there a code that guides the elevation?
So that is covered in your town code, and it is 4-to-1 is the requirement, and that's what we're meeting. But
Sorry, what was the requirement?
4-to-1.
4-to-1.
Yeah, so 25% slope down
25%
in,
slope.
which is a mowable slope. I mean, it's steep for someone to mow, but it is a mowable slope with a mower sideways or up and down. Now, the thing to remember on these ponds that we're proposing in this is they're like 3.5, 4 foot deep. So they're not very deep ponds. They're not going to look like a whole lot when you drive by and they're actually out there.
And I guess the concern there would be safety, like with the child
Yep.
running around in there. Would that cause them to have an accident or something?
No, this is very typical. Quite often you see 3-to-1 or 2-to-1s into, especially like the area in Pioneer Park Pond that's below water surface normally is at a 2-to-1. So, which is not untypical on those that are in non-pot ponds with permanent water surfaces.
Okay, thank you.
And again, this is a detention pond, not
Ours is a detention,
so
correct.
we-
Yes, thank you for clarifying that again.
Any other questions about the engineering of that detention pond?
No.
I have some for staff.
Yeah, I do too. All right, so Kristen, did you have anything else that you wanted to clarify?
Not unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions for the applicant, commissioners? If not, then I would ask the staff.
Maybe I do have one.
Okay.
The townhome product that you're proposing here, have you built that anywhere else?
We are Chad Rodriguez again, Truemark Homes. We are currently building townhome product, not this exact product, but we're building this in Arvada right now, and we're also building it. It's called Berkeley Villas, is a project of ours, and both of those are actually 3-story product versus 2-story, but they're the same width. They're 20 foot wide, and then we'll be in Parker building these as well, and then we have an upcoming project in Erie where we'll be building townhomes as well.
Thank you. Okay, anything else for the applicant?
Yeah, did we cover all the question from the audience?
No, we still have some, I think, of staff.
Okay.
There was one point, and I apologize if I misunderstood the point that was being made, but there was a concern about the plats not being identical between submissions, and I understand that there was a change in density and change in the size of the retention pond. Was there anything else that you'd want to call our attention to in terms of differences between the plats that maybe
Was that the comment about the application, the plat in the application?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the application is submitted once. It's submitted at the very beginning of a project. And really, I can't remember the wording at the bottom of it, but essentially it is the property owner acknowledging and saying that it's okay to process this application, for the town to process, to request and to give the authority to process whatever application it may be. So like a plat application, because you wouldn't want someone else submitting an application on someone else's property, right? So that's really the intent of it, is to say, we'd like to process this application and we're giving the authority for that to happen. So the Town of Berthoud's applications include some generalized information like what's the name of your project, where is it located, what are parcel numbers. These are typical things. They also have a box on there where you include kind of minimum, maximum, and average lot sizes. You include your open space number. So you include some land use calculations. This is prior to the first submittal. So, as part of the review process, there are always changes that happen. You get comments, you make revisions, you find that you need a larger detention pond, you remove some lots. And so the information on that application changes a lot, or changes some. What I will say is that there are many jurisdictions out there that don't include that land use information. I would wager to guess because it changes throughout the process. It just happens that the town requests some of this information to be included on the application. But the application doesn't get revised because it's not, I probably use the wrong word, so correct me, Ton. It's not an application material that is part of the review to be in conformance with the code and the master plans and the comprehensive plans and things like that. It's really the form saying we'd like you to accept this application and we have the authority to say that you can review our property. It happens to include this land use information on it, but that changes over time. And like I said, a lot of jurisdictions don't even include land use information on their applications because it will tweak, and the final document is whatever those final approval documents are. So whatever information is included there, lot counts, acreages, those are what it is. And so they may not match the application that was submitted on day one at the very end of the process.
Madam Chair, if I may add to that. So Kristen is correct. The primary element that we are looking at on an application form is the property owner signature, because that is the legal binding confirmation that we can proceed legally with this application. And we compare that signature then to, we also require title commitment information. So we confirm a substantial amount of ownership information to ensure that we do legally have the right to move forward with our application or their request. The information, yes, we do ask for those averages and, gross and all this and that Kristen is correct, change over time. And often we may see an error or two even on that initial submittal. The thing is that it is just general information, and what we really want to ensure is the accurate are the documents that really define and then go on record with that information. So that would be, in this particular case, the preliminary plat. Also, the project narrative is also a very important document to us, because that generally is the document that the majority of the community, yourselves, the Town Board of Trustees, and our reviewing agencies also refer to when they're doing their review. And so those are the documents that we want to be accurate. And also keeping in mind that the preliminary plat, when it is reviewed, we also require what's called closure data and boundary line data. And that goes along with the preliminary plat. It's very technical, and that lays the foundation and the key information on the actual legal boundaries of that property. And that is reviewed by our town surveyor, which happens to be with Baseline Engineering, because that is our consulting firm that we rely on. They review that each and every time they resubmit to ensure that it continues to be accurate. And so we know for a fact that the information presented on the preliminary plat is absolutely accurate. And that is where, when we rely upon things like acreage, that's where we look. We do not look at the application form. And so certainly we can take this also under consideration, and that maybe we shouldn't have that stated on our application forms, because, to Kristen's point, some communities don't even ask for it for that very reason, because it changes over time. And we don't require a new application every time one of the other documents change.
Well
if I could ask this slightly differently, staff is confident that the preliminary plats being presented here today, though, are accurate.
Absolutely. And that is because we have had a number of eyes on it, not just planning, not just engineering, but again, Baseline Engineering, our surveyor has looked at it, our landscape architect has looked at it, Little Thompson Water District, there are just a slew, Berthoud Fire District has looked at it, and they're looking at a whole slew of different information, and a lot of the information we are also looking at. So they're double checking easements, boundary line information, acreage. They are looking at all of that information. So there are tons of eyes on this document.
Great. Thanks for that confirmation. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other questions of our applicant before we ask staff to come up and answer some more questions?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Back to the parking question. Has the HOA been, have the covenants been drawn up yet for the 5th filing?
No.
What's the process for that? Is it after, in the development process, when are the covenants drafted and?
So covenants are typically drafted late in the game. It
Okay.
would definitely not be part of preliminary plat. It could be as part of the final plat or even after the final plat is approved, but not at preliminary.
So do you
So not
know
yet.
of any requirements that you're planning on as far as where people can park outside their garage, or they have to park in their garage, or any of those? Are there plans for not letting people park outside their garage?
Sure. I'm not sure that's really been determined yet. It just is, the covenants are really preliminary at a preliminary plat level. You know, usually there needs to be an understanding that a project is moving forward, and just getting into more of the final design and aspects and development agreements and things like that. So I have not heard anything about those conversations at this point.
Okay.
So maybe I'll say this in a different way. Is that something that could be a possibility in addition to any other landscaping requirement?
Requiring people to park in their garages?
Or
Is that the question?
having some type of even limitation on parking outside the garage?
I don't know. I think that is a legal question, and I don't know if that is something that can be required of any homeowner.
I was wondering the same thing, where there would be some legal prohibition about not allowing them to park there, as well as maybe not having pods outside, which we've seen in some of that development.
Yeah, it's very difficult to enforce
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So parking, I mean, that is a question for an attorney, and my gut would tell me that you can't require that of a private homeowner. I think HOAs do have some leverage with things that get parked outside on private property. So pods and things like that. Those are typically things that you'll see in covenants that they can restrict. If they can be parked or for how long they can be parked. You know, often there'll be covenants that will say you can't park a boat on your front yard, you know, that type of thing. So I think anything like that outside of your home is something that has a potential to be included in covenants.
In other words, like a pod in a public alleyway behind the driveways and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know I've lived in neighborhoods that have had rules. You can have a pod for X number of days while you're getting ready for a move, and then it's got to be gone. So.
And Madam Chair, I don't know if in Fickle Farms, if the HOA is consistent through all of the filings or not. So if we wanted to have the HOA be consistent, if it is consistent, then anything that we would want to impact the 5th filing would have to be enforced throughout the entire Fickle Farms too. So definitely, I think we can ask the developer to take a look at that. However, I think that a legal interpretation would be needed,
necessary,
and that's
yeah.
something that they can present with the final plat.
Thank you for that. Okay. Any other questions? I'm almost afraid to ask now. Great. No, I'm glad we got to ask questions. Thank you.
You
Ms.
bet.
Turner.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, then let's ask, could we ask staff to come up? I believe there's some questions. I know you're probably going to ask the same questions I am, but
Well, and I guess what I think that there was a couple things raised during the public comment that I was hoping staff could clarify, and they all related to the code. So specifically, there seemed to be a concern that there's not a transition or a buffer area between single family and townhomes, and there was the statement that I think that that's a code requirement. I'm not aware of that being a code requirement because I think this has come up on other properties, but I wanted you to specifically answer that. And then the second was the density, and whether what was being proposed out here is actually in excess of the density allowed under code, or does this development meet the code standards for density and lot size?
Yes. So to start with the density question. So the thing to keep in mind is that the density, yes, there's an underlying requirement for density. Primarily under the new code, we do have, so the previous code, there was an error in the previous code when it came to townhomes, specifically townhome lots, minimum lot size, overall lot size. That was an error that was brought to our attention and that we realized as staff over a year ago. So we were in the works of correcting that area or that error, along with all other of the errors that we were correcting and scrubbing the code for. That was the primary reason behind this recent code scrub, is because there were discrepancies and errors and things were left out, and so we went through and corrected it, as you well know. So the code still does require density, and now it is based upon density per acre, and that is based upon industry standards for R1 zone, like R1 is our single family residential zone district or urban residential zone district. And those then, of course, tie back to the comprehensive plan and the intent of those character districts. So, of course, naturally, urban residential zone district or urban commercial zone districts tend to be your highest density zone districts, whereas then you get to the very end of that spectrum, and that would be agriculture-based zone districts. And then you have R1, R2, R3, R4, and it builds up from there. That is what is called transect zoning, and that is a planning concept. And so we have urban residential zone district, which is what this property is currently zoned, and that is a transect zone type. And then you have a typical Euclidean zone type, which is the R1, R2, R3, 4, so on and so forth. So there is density requirements in the new code. And like I said, we clarified and we scrubbed it, and it's based upon, so in the urban residential zone district, townhomes have, the required density is 22 units per acre. And duplexes is 16 units per acre. When it comes to lot size, the thing to understand under the R1 and R2 and R4 is that they do have minimum lot size standards. And essentially, by defining a minimum lot size or by defining an actual number of units per acre, you're essentially controlling density. So there are two same ways to control density. Like I said, there was an error in the previous code that we corrected, and it was an error before this application was ever submitted. It, again, was something that was brought to our attention, and we corrected it. There is, currently, this application is meeting those density requirements, both of the previous and of this code. And the neighborhood master plan, more importantly, is going to be the guiding document, or the document, it's not even guiding, that is the document in which this development must adhere. So the density that was approved as part of the neighborhood master plan is the required density, essentially, for this development. So this development is required, as per stated in code, once a neighborhood master plan is approved by the town board of trustees, the preliminary plat must be in substantial compliance with the neighborhood master plan. And so therefore, the density that was approved by the town board of trustees is the density that they could not exceed with this preliminary plat. And as you recall, this preliminary plat is actually proposing a less density than what was approved on the neighborhood master plan. And granted, it isn't a substantial amount, but it is less than what was approved. And so we go by that neighborhood master plan, because that plan was approved based upon the code at the time. They are required then to adhere to that neighborhood master plan density, and this preliminary plat meets that neighborhood master plan in that regard.
Before we move on to, thank you for that, the transition area, just one more point about the density, and I think that you've answered this in parts already, but there was a concern raised about the code being altered in coordination with applications and to be more lenient for the developers. Could you say a little bit more about when the town decides to make code changes and what that process looks like?
Absolutely. So I will confirm that this was no way, shape, or form out of consideration or in favor of this development. That was not why that there was an error in code It was very confusing, and thus we recognized it, like I said, over a year ago when we started to consider, quite honestly, taking you back when Ann and I both started with the town, which we're going on 3 years at this point. As we're getting familiar with the code, we had sticky note upon sticky note upon sticky note of all the different things that were off, and it was everything from the numbering, how like even definitions were numbers, some were letters, and so there was a slew of all these errors and things that we felt were missing from code from our previous experiences and our background in as development review planners. And so we finally got to that point where it's we recognize that, okay, there are enough of these things that do need to be corrected, because obviously we rely very heavily on our development code and it's a very important document, and so we want it to be accurate and clear and user friendly. And so we made that decision with discussions, Planning Commission and Town Board of Trustees, as well as the town administrator, to move forward with making those revisions, and that was our goal that was set for 2025.
Yeah, we started those changes in October of 2024.
Yes, and so that was well before Fickle Farm fifth filing made an application. The error actually was brought to our attention by a number of other developers throughout the town, and we sat down with a number of them to explain to us exactly and to try to help us clarify what was going on. And it was an issue between the minimum lot size on a townhome, and then there was an overall requirement for the overall lot. And this is really hard to explain, of course, and I don't have a code to show you, but there was a minimum lot size requirement of 1,600 square feet, and then an overall attached product type of 8,000 square feet. And so it did not equate, and on paper it looked like it made sense, but then when you went and you don't have perfectly square or rectangular lots that you're working with, it just created this crazy conflict. And so we recognized that that was a major error. Looking back in documents, talking with Chris Kirk, the town administrator, we could not come up with what the intent or what was the reasoning behind those two requirements, because they were in conflict. And so we had every intention to make that correction outside of this application or any developer. It was so that it was clear and it was transparent, and that so we had clarity, because we also as staff needed clarity. And so that's why we made that change.
And we went to a strict density of units per acre instead of units per lot, number of lots per acre, number of lots per square number. We just went to strict units per acre, and that calculation also strips out some area that was needed for sidewalks, for streets, for some of those other infrastructure requirements, so that in turn reduced the number of units that were even going to be allowed, to reduced overall density as well.
Okay.
And so for the question on feathering and the density in
Yes,
that regard.
thank you.
So there are requirements, there is language, and I believe, sorry, my computer fell asleep. In the new code, we do have one of the intent statements that I believe was referenced. Yes, density transition, where proposed residential development includes densities that differ from those of adjacent existing residential neighborhoods. The applicant shall provide a physical buffer between developments and incorporate a gradual transition from higher to lower density. So we do not technically have a requirement for residential to residential buffer. So like use for like use, generally buffers are intended for a different use to a different use. So residential adjacent to an industrial use, but anything that is defined as residential by the development code, and that is everything from single family dwelling to all the way, I believe, to townhomes. Multifamily is considered a different use, would require, so that the multifamily apartment complex could potentially require a buffer between, say, single family. But however, townhomes are considered a single family residential unit. So whether you're standalone, paired home, or townhome, that is considered similar, same use. So there isn't a buffer requirement. One could argue, and I would argue, as a planner, that this is feathering. This is natural transition in an urban residential environment. And so going from a 20-foot townhome lot, transitioning to a duplex of 30-foot lot, which is also what is seen in Fickle Farm fourth filing, is also very similar, 30-foot wide lot, slightly larger. And then you have Fickle Farm single family, which is at 53. That would be what would be defined as a feathering. And then if you start to move beyond the boundary of Fickle Farm or the newer Fickle Farm to the older Fickle Farm, then it is a natural transition. So that 53 then transitions into the older portions of Fickle Farm and the slightly larger. So by definition, one could argue, and I would argue, that that is a natural feathering. This is defined in the comprehensive plan as an urban residential zone district. And again, urban residential, and it's not just this portion of Fickle, it is the remaining portions of Fickle as well are defined as urban residential. Essentially what we want to see is keeping the density within the urban core or the center core of Berthoud as is Fickle, because what we want to avoid is of course sprawl. And we want the tighter densities. That is good planning, that is good policy. And that is good policy for all of our infrastructure, water utilities, sanitation, stormwater management. That is good growth. That is managing good growth by planning definition.
And Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission, I'd like to remind you that this is the final phase of a PUD that was first approved in 1994. So this is the final phase, and it's been planned for this type of development for, what is that, if I did math, over 30 years.
Yeah.
It's been public document for over 30 years that this was the intent of this development for that amount of time, and this is the final. So in essence, this type of development could be seen as an infill project coming in that final development.
Thank you for that. Okay. Commissioners, other questions of staff? Thank you, Stacy, for asking mine.
Is the public allowed to talk here? This is like
Sir,
a
let me
Gestapo.
explain the process here. While we did have a public hearing so that we could we could hear your questions, and we did try to ask as many of the questions as we could that you had of the applicant and get clarifications. However, because of due process, we can only have the public hearing open to, in a manner where those who want, if from the public that want to testify, get the same amount of time to talk and ask questions. Otherwise, we're in violation of what we're supposed to do as far as making sure that you have an opportunity and the same opportunity as everyone else. So,
Now give us the
unfortunately,
opportunity.
You bring
Sir,
new
sir, you had the
information
public
in and
hearing.
don't let us
Yeah.
respond to it.
Sir, please,
We can
I
clarify
unfortunately,
some of these things.
unfortunately, we've already had the public hearing and you've had your opportunity. And again, we can't allow you to continue to speak because then you may have more voice than someone else. So,
And just to
That's wrong.
emphasize
That
on
is wrong.
the point, the Planning Commission does not establish these rules. We are volunteers for the town, and the town is establishing these rules to maintain their legal compliance with the law.
And you're circumventing the public process.
We know that, but that's okay.
again, and thank you, Abby. Absolutely, we have a process that we have to follow. We are required to make sure that we allow you your time to speak, which we have done. And again, to be fair, we can only allow everyone to have the same amount of time from the public to
They have a lot more
speak.
time than us. Don't go there.
All right. Commissioners, discussion before we go through the development requirements. All right, so let's do that as we go through them. I believe those are on which page of the packet? It's on 4 and 5, and we also have a listing that was provided to us of those. All right, so there are 7 development requirements that the code requires. Let's go ahead and go through each one. Let's go through statement A. and I will read through that. Can we put those, is there any way to put those up on the screen? So that our audience can see them too? While we're waiting for that, also just another bit of information for our audience. What the Plan Commission does, and as Ton had referred to earlier on one of her slides, is we are quasi-judicial, but we also have to follow the criteria in the code, which is what you have now on the screen that you can see. There are 7 development requirements then for the preliminary plat, and that's what we're going to go through now and discuss whether or not the applicant has met those. Okay. So, statement A. Complement the town's historic development patterns and fit into the context of the existing and planned development on surrounding properties. Number 1, street, sidewalk, and trail alignment with adjoining developments and properties to ensure safe, efficient, and pleasant walking, biking, and driving experiences. Number 2, decrease dependency on vehicles. 3, existing and planned parks and open spaces in the development as well as in the town shall be connected by sidewalks and trails. Number 4, the parks, trails, and open space master plans were utilized in the development of the project. Number 5, compact, well-defined, sustainable neighborhoods to enhance the town's character, complements the existing neighborhood and surrounding area. A discussion, commissioners, on statement A.
Yes, I think it meets statement A. I think that we have addressed the concerns related to traffic and parking and the referral agencies such as the fire department that have approved the design.
Any other? Everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so by nod of head and Abby's statement, we believe as a commission that they have met statement A. Let's go to statement B. Adhere to the vision established in the comprehensive plan, land development code, overlay districts, and master plans covering the property, including number 1, the land use code and underlying zone district. Number 2, the land use code development and design standards. Number 3, architectural guidelines. Number 4, landscape design guidelines. Number 5, engineering standards and specifications. Number 6, flood hazard mitigation. Number 7, geological hazard mitigation. Number 8, other plans, specifications, and guidelines that may impact the property. Okay, discussion, commissioners. I think we've heard testimony, or we've heard our staff say that this particular application adheres to the vision of the comprehensive plan and the land and meets the land development code. We've heard that the referral agencies have now no issues with this particular development.
And while the detention ponds were a point of concern, they are engineered in order to mitigate hazards from floods. So that is the primary goal of those ponds. And I'm glad that we discussed the concerns around them.
And I think they meet the engineering standards and specifications associated with it.
And I know we discussed landscaping concerns facing Mountain Ave, and that was just a non-starter due to the utilities.
Okay, are we all in agreement then, considering that that substantiation about that statement A, or statement B, excuse me, has been met?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And this may be a useful time to just reiterate that this was in the comprehensive plan zoned to be a more urban residential area, and that this development fits that criteria in terms of its density and the units that are being proposed, the kind of units.
Thank you for saying that and putting that on the record. Okay, let's look at statement C. C, ensure there is sufficient provision for public utilities, services, and facilities. The development shall be designed with consideration of the future needs as well as adequately managing the impact of the proposed development on the surrounding area and town in general. Hazardous conditions on and off-site shall not be created by the proposal. Number 1, water. Number 2, sanitary sewer. Number 3, stormwater. Number 4, electric and natural gas. Number 5, schools. Number 6, fire protection and emergency response. Number 7, public transit. Number 8, traffic circulation. Number 9, pedestrian movement. Number 10, irrigation practices.
And again, I think these are mostly covered by the referral agencies, and they're all in concurrence with the proposed plans.
I do remember in the previous phase of this project expressing concerns about the safety of the sidewalk along Mountain Avenue, and the cross-section visual is a bit confusing since the fence is not clearly obvious in the cross-section, but I do think that the discussion around what each of those aspects of the cross-section were and their width from the housing units was helpful. And I do think that the spacing between the townhome units and Mountain Avenue appears sufficient.
We did talk about the detention pond, stormwater, all of those things. Seems and feel, at least I felt fairly satisfied with that. Those met the criteria. So, anyone else with regard to statement C?
Just in terms of public transit, I think it is helpful to have that traffic context, especially with the short and long-term planning. I think that having that speed limit reduced to 35 miles an hour will be very helpful in that region.
As someone who walks near that every day, I would love to see that from a safety perspective. Okay, so are we all in agreement that statement C has been met?
Yes.
Let's look at statement D. Mitigate negative impacts of the development on surrounding property. Number 1, light. Number 2, air quality. Number 3, the oil and gas regulation section of this chapter. Number 4, sensitive natural, historic, and environmental areas and properties. Number 5, compatibility of use. So we had a discussion about that. I think are there any comments about those? About
Well, I think
statement D?
staff's comments about the feathering of the uses and the comprehensive plan and master plan were very helpful, I think, as far as how this has been designed and looking back 30 years that, it was planned to go from more dense to less dense and kind of in stages. So it got built less dense and is building towards the end. So that goes to that compatibility of uses.
Which sounds like, from knowing that the original PUD had this type of use, is I think really convincing to me that this has been something that has been considered for many years. Any other comments, commissioners?
Not 6-unit townhomes.
Do we generally agree that statement D has been met?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's look at then statement E. Address a need or desirability within Berthoud, and the development proposal will help achieve a balance of land use, create a specific sense of place through placemaking in each district neighborhood, provide a variety of housing types, meet architectural diversity standards, and integrate meaningful neighborhood identity features into the development according to town goals. Comments?
Yes, so this does introduce a variety of housing types that are desirable within the community in terms of options that are not only single-family homes.
Considering the study we were involved with last year about diversity of housing types and that kind of thing, I think this does help to meet some of the, or to bridge some of the gaps that we saw there. Any other comments, commissioners? Okay, then with regard to statement D, are we in agreement that the application or the applicant has met statement D? E, excuse me.
Yes.
And D.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, great.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And statement F, meet all applicable local, state, and federal permits have been or that, we need a word there, permits that have been or will be obtained.
Well, we need to rely on the staff.
yeah, for that. I think that's kind of down the road a piece. But are we in agreement that that's something that will happen?
Yes.
Needs to happen.
Needs to happen? Or it just won't go forward anyway, right? It's kind of, it doesn't. All right. So then we are in agreement that statement F has been met. All right, last one. Statement G. Address such matters as the town may deem necessary in order to protect the best interest of the public. And we talked about a lot of different things that could fall under that.
We did, and the one I think that's compelling to me between the first filing and this one is the detention. So they've had to lose 11 units to increase the detention facility in order to make sure that this development and the additional impermeable surface isn't negatively impacting other areas of the community.
Agreed. And again, we know from the study we did last year, we know that we can offer some different property types here that may be helpful as far as housing diversity. Right. Anything else? Any other comments about statement G? If not, are we in general agreement that the applicant has met statement G?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Smith? Okay. All right. So we've gone through all of the development requirements and determined that, and the commission has by consensus determined that the developer has met those statements. At this time, is there any other discussion that you want to have with regard to this particular development? This particular application, excuse me. No. All right. With that, then, I would entertain a motion with regard to Fickle Farm 5th filing preliminary plat.
I move to make a recommendation to the town trustees to approve the request for a preliminary plat for the Fickle Farm 5th filing. Planning Commission's recommendation is based on the findings outlined in the staff report that the development requirements found in section 30-5-101 of the municipal code have been met.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Smith and a second by Commissioner Hoffmans. Could we please take the roll, Ms. Manzo?
Commissioner Sigmund?
Yes.
Commissioner Pond?
Yes.
Commissioner Filio?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffmans?
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith?
Yes.
Chair Anderson?
Yes. Okay, with that, the motion passes. And we're on to the next item in our agenda. I do want to say to our audience, please, thank you for being with us tonight and for providing your comments. We do appreciate that, and we do appreciate
Care about our property values,
taking
or
time
you would
with that.
actually listen. This is bullshit. You're just
Just
gonna
don't
rubber
even
stamp
follow
this
the
and let
code.
this come in.
Man.
6-unit
Man.
buildings next to
Give me
ours.
these. Give me these.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's go to our next item on our agenda. I believe, I don't remember which ordinance that was. I have my agenda in front of me. It's the first ordinance. Thank you.
My electronic one.
Too many papers.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So that would be the work session. We are going to go into work session on on ordinance 1241, which pertains to the Planning Commission, our terms, and how we are appointed.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. This is just a reminder. We thought that since we've had a stable planning commission, which is fantastic, we haven't done an orientation session, had SIRSA up. We have had a few, we call them open mic nights with the town attorney. I think just one last, or maybe two last year. We haven't had them as frequently, so we thought that we'd just go through the ordinance 1241 that established the planning commission or set some new parameters. So just a high level overview. Again, the Board of Trustees appoints the planning commission. Planning commissioners, there's 7, and they are appointed from the citizens of Berthoud. You're appointed to a 3-year term. If for some reason a planning commissioner gets an idea that they want to apply for a town trustee position or move or something like that, then there would be a new appointment that would fill that vacant term. So that individual then would fill that individual's term. Per this ordinance, a planning commissioner does not serve more than 2 consecutive terms. Applicant now, there's always an opportunity that if you're interested in serving more than 2 consecutive terms, you could reapply at that time, because if there aren't enough applicants, then there would be an opportunity to serve that 3rd term if there aren't enough applicants, and sometimes that could happen. Last year, we did have some vacancies for reasons that could not be helped. And so, just wanted to reiterate, no more than 4 or more vacancies in a calendar year or 4 meetings in a 4-month period. I don't think we're gonna have that issue, but that's just a reminder. And then, planning commissioners, there in the memo, it just did list everybody's terms. And I said here the original terms, and I could not find original terms, so I just put the expiration term in here, and I did not correct that, so my apologies. Chair Anderson, your term expires September of 27. Vice Chair Smith, your term does expire this November. Secretary Semidalis' term expires August of this year. Commissioner Filho, your term expires July of 27. And the reason why it expires is you are replacing someone who was appointed to the Town Board of Trustees. So you are filling their role, their position.
Just to clarify on that, so it's obviously only been a few months, so would that count as a term?
I know.
You know, there's 2 terms, so I would assume the 8 months or whatever that was remaining in that doesn't count as a term. It wouldn't count as a term until he's in the next, or it doesn't.
It does. According to our town clerk, it does.
Okay.
I know. So one of the things I'm trying to do also is trying to get everything to align. So if somebody is getting appointed, even though Bryce was appointed in July, can we just appoint him, have everything expire in September instead of January and August and September? Because it's a lot for me to keep track of.
Well, not only that, it seems like we have a lot of applications through the beginning of the winter through the summer. So not as much stuff going on in the fall. So wouldn't you want the new people coming in at one of the lull period times more, or if there is one, in like September? I know it doesn't make sense to me either.
Right. Well, and then Commissioner Hoffman's, your term expires next year at this time in January. And then Commissioner Pond and Commissioner Sigmund, your September of 27. So anyway, we definitely want everybody to reapply. You all are absolutely wonderful, and we appreciate you all. I just am putting that in there so we all know when each other's terms are expiring and what's happening. So there are no issues. I'm not concerned with anything. I just wanted to have this opportunity, since Commissioner Filho was the last one that joined us. I think August maybe was the first time you were here. I just thought we'd visit this. This is really all we needed to talk about, unless you have questions.
Well, go ahead.
No, well, mine was kind of unrelated, but it has nothing to do with terms, but it's just kind of a procedural thing for the Land Commission that I thought maybe was a good idea. Am I the only one that feels like 3 minutes is tight?
No,
I agree.
So, I mean,
Yes.
because I'm happy to stay an extra hour on the days I come. There's got to be a limit. We need to do it the right way. But I feel bad sometimes that, we have long presentations. The petitioner, I love thank you, that you can't do the back and forth. We have to follow. I personally think, though, I feel like 3 minutes isn't sufficient. And so I'd love to see something. I just wondered if I was the only one that, it feels like sometimes we have two people here, we go, nope, 3 minutes, and it's
Well,
6 minutes of public
The problem-
comment.
The problem has to do with this. To make sure that we provide due process, which means that everybody has an equal amount of time. If there are 40 people in the room, which
Yeah,
we've had
that's
before,
Right.
we can't give them each 5 minutes. We'll be here forever. And if there are, so it really, to me, and then, but what do you do in the case where you do a hearing and you give them all 5 minutes, but then the next people come up for a hearing where they've got 40 people in the room, and you only give them 3. They're going to say, well, we didn't get equal time on that particular issue, so it becomes a legal due process issue. And I agree. I'd love to have heard more of what some of the people have to say, but I worry a little bit about what happens from a legal standpoint if we.
Well, let me ask this another way. I mean, because I've sat through, I have 40 years of public hearings. And I've sat till some at 2 a.m. And trust me, it's not fun. But at the same time, that happens once every 10 years. It's not like, it would be a big case. So, in my time here, we've never come close to having 40 people in the room. It's over the 2-year period.
We have, though.
Yeah.
Have we?
Yeah.
Well, in the last 2 years?
Yes.
No, I said
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I was there when.
I must have missed
yeah.
that one. All right, I was
Well, but I think
strategic on
for
when
a
I
long
was out
time
of
than
town.
you, I mean, it was, but we had that, and then one day we ended at, I don't know, it was midnight.
And so it was midnight even at the 3 minutes. And I guess yeah. I was gonna say, how often does that happen? And is it worth us just having a bad night here and there if it's really not very often? But if you're telling me it happens quite a bit,
Well,
then.
did 3 minutes come from somewhere? Is there a legal precedent for 3 minutes, or?
There must be, because even, I remember, I used to testify before the school board where we lived. And they gave you 3 minutes, and that was it. So there must be, 3 minutes must have some magic to it somewhere, but.
And definitely, so our town attorney, Aaron Smith, is retiring in January, and we will have a new town attorney coming on board, and it will be
Maybe
something.
they'll give us 5 minutes.
It's something that we will definitely want to get to know the new town attorney, and we can have them come and we can
love to
spend some
discuss
time
that.
with them.
Yeah.
And let's put that on the checklist to ask them. When I was a Larimer County Planning Commissioner, it was 3 minutes, and when there was a big audience, it went down to 2 minutes. When I was a consultant and presented in front of lots of different municipalities and counties, it was always 3 minutes, and if there were big participants, it went down to 2 minutes. Sometimes they would even say, we have a lot here, if you can provide your testimony in writing before the hearing, so that they can take that testimony in their packets, that's even better. So
I sit in a lot of legislative hearings because I need to understand what the interpretation is going to be when this stuff comes out of the sausage maker, right? And I will tell you, last year I sat in on one. It's probably the worst one I've ever listened to when it comes to listening to testimony. They gave everybody 60 seconds. You had 60 seconds to present. They had about 50 people who were testifying. And then if the chair didn't like that you were saying something somebody else said, they'd cut you off. She'd say, sorry, somebody else said that, you're done. And make that person sit down. And sometimes they get a little nutty, I would like to have the attorney address that issue. Because
I've got it on the list.
Yeah, and I mean, if we can do again, I come from Illinois. Colorado could be completely different. Each municipality could set whatever restrictions. They just had to be fairly applied. We couldn't give you 5 minutes and you 8 minutes, but as long as it was everybody at that hearing was treated consistently, that's all
So the
that
question is, can we make differences between hearing and other hearings? Because if we know we have 50 people, it's going to be very difficult to give more than 3 minutes. But if we have 5 people coming, can we say, okay, we allow for a little bit longer, like 4 minutes, or, I'm cheating a little bit with that.
Again, I'm just wondering how that plays into due process. That's what
Yeah.
worries me about it.
So I think I think that's great. And again, it sounds like you had some experience where the code could say 3
4
minutes for one and 2 minutes for
Yeah.
another, and we could say 5 minutes and 3 minutes, and maybe there's 3 if it's, less than 10 people signed up to talk, it's 5. If
Yeah.
it's this, it's 3. And if
Yeah,
it's,
that-
It would
if
be
it's
nice-
over 30, it's this. I mean, I feel bad that people
Yeah,
come
so-
here, they take the time out of their night, it's vitally important to them, and I want them to at least feel like we care enough to hear it. It just
Yeah,
feels
so-
sometimes like we get cut short.
And on top of that, what
Thank you.
I've realized a few times is that when you have a lot of people coming, the first are taking the 3 minutes, but then they know they come exactly with the same comments, and they stop after 1 minute or 2 minutes. I've seen that many times here as well. So, yeah, I would probably prefer, if it's possible, if it's less than 10 people coming, give them 4 minutes, and if it's more than 20, only 2 minutes.
Yeah, I would like to, if we could do that, and then maybe even
Thank
have
you,
that
sir.
as a set of guidelines. The other thing, sometimes I worry about when these people want to concede their time to someone. Well, I'm not sure that meets due process either, because then you're giving one person more time than someone else. And so I'd like to hear what the attorney says about that.
Yeah.
And there are things like that sometimes I'm playing lawyer when people ask that and saying to myself, oh, are we gonna have a due process issue with that? I'd like to
Yeah.
hear our lawyer talk about that, that has more experience with these kinds of things. And these areas of law than I do.
And that's an excellent point. And there's a part of me that says, okay, if it's just like, well, I want to give you my time, and then, no, that doesn't seem right for 6 minutes. But every once in a while, if somebody represents a petition of, I'm representing these 30 people, and then it does seem a little strange that, you're trying to do, but I think it's a great question to ask on.
I listened to a friend of mine testify at a legislative hearing last year where he was representing 10 different national associations on the issue, and they still gave him 60 seconds.
I know,
So you're going, wait a minute.
So maybe make your list of things that come to mind for operating during your meetings, and as soon as we get an attorney on board, and once they're ready to come meet with you all, we'll have a work session with them, and you can ask
that's a
them
good idea.
questions.
So
And I'll
we
ask.
also, sorry. So what I noticed today is that, in fact, the applicant brought some new information for us, or maybe for you, but then they don't have the chance to react to that. Is there a way, sometimes when we feel that would be nice to hear the participant, once again to say, okay, for that specific case, we can allow you to ask another question.
What, I guess we should,
We'd have to open another public hearing.
right, yeah, I guess I didn't hear any new information this evening.
But I think that the point that you're making, which is something that I think is kind of wrapped up in the discussion of whether 3 minutes is a fair amount of time, is that the applicant does get a lot more time than the public
do.
hearing when you just have like 3 minutes and it's 2 people giving testimony, and we ask questions of the applicant to get more information. And so my kind of thinking on this is like, I certainly don't want to limit the amount of information that the planning commission gets from the applicant, because I think that's very important, but should there be limits on the applicant's time? Should we have rules for ourselves in how many questions we're allowed? Like, what kind of constraints should we have on that part of the process?
So my take on that, though, is that you have to keep in mind that the public hearing is due process for the applicant. This is the applicant's opportunity for due process and what they are requesting. While, yes, public comment is a very important component of that, this is about the applicant due process. This isn't about the public's due process. This is about the applicant.
Okay.
And so to limit the applicant, I think would be
No.
super wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
again,
like a
limiting
misunderstanding
yourself or
of the.
limiting staff would also not be okay.
Yeah,
And
but I do think
and
that
I don't
that's
think you can ever reopen and then ask questions would be heard. I mean, that there would just
Well,
be in a debate.
and then we'd have-
Then the
But-
10
Right.
minutes, then we open it and
Well,
close it. I mean, you really have to.
No, but again,
It's here to make a statement, not question and answer.
But when a person
Yeah,
from the
yes
public
and
gets
no,
a
because-
notice that they have a application that's going to be within 500 yards or whatever the limit is to, that I think the assumption when they come here is that the public hearing part and the due process is for them. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Oh,
that
they
there's,
absolutely do.
yeah, I think that the what the process is aimed to achieve maybe is not very clear in this state.
So I think we're going a little bit beyond this discussion. I think it would be really good to have the attorney present
Yeah,
for
let's
this
do that.
discussion.
Yeah. So we
Yes.
can-
And I do want, Commissioner Hoffman's brought something up about, I do want to say this. So as staff, we talk about the land use case that you're hearing amongst each other. We have internal meetings. We're meeting with the referral agencies. We're meeting with with Luke, the development review engineer. When we have questions, we're meeting with each other. I don't do a lot of detailed, current planning work. So when I'm doing my work, I actually make time with Ton and Bella so that they're double checking my work as well. We're looking at each other's staff reports. We're doing a lot of QA, QC internally so that when you get a document, yes, we miss things. It's not perfect. However, I want you all to know that if an applicant would present new information that is substantive, that would present something that a referral agency or staff, if it could be detrimental or substantive that would warrant us to review the application materials, you're immediately going to know about it because we are going to raise our hands and we are going to say, Madam Chair, I need to let you know that the applicant has presented new information, new testimony that we have not had the time to properly vet through the referral process. We need to talk to the applicant about the situation before we proceed any further. So if something new would have been presented that was substantive, we would have stopped the hearing.
We could, and then we would have had to vote to postpone.
Continue it, yeah.
Is that what happened when the school district decided day of that they were gonna have a problem?
Yeah.
Basically.
And then everything just blows up?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just goes nuts. One thing I wanted to kind of bring up while we are talking about this particular ordinance is, should we have, like, the ordinance does talk about some expectations, they talk about like expectations for attendance and that kind of thing, but it doesn't really set out kind of the expectations for what the commission's supposed to do. Now, I liked the slide that Ton had today, I think that was helpful. I think having that kind of listed, but I think, are there other things like that we should have, like, particularly when someone's new, when they first come in as a commissioner, like, that you're expected to read all of the material, I know it's kind of intrinsic, but you're expected to read all of the materials. You're not, and like the list that Ton had said, you're not supposed to talk to people about this outside of this hearing. You're not supposed to sign petitions. Are there other things like that we should have on a list that when someone is new to the commission, that we could give them as guidance?
I think it would be beneficial to set. So from my perspective, yes, it would be good to have those expectations for the commissioner, just being kind of somewhat new to this still. I think it would also be very beneficial to have expectations set for everybody who's going to talk. Or they're just again, going to the slide, I think it was helpful for them to know that we are just quasi judicial, so it's just the emotions and everything, that's great, but really if you want to come up and speak and talk about the code and where you find something that you have a flaw there, that I think would help take away some of the emotion, but also actually give us information that, because it's really, I don't know, I think it would just be helpful for them to know, okay, you get 3 minutes, you're going to be doing this. Also, if you have things to talk about and you don't want to talk about them, focus on the code, I'm just kind of guiding that conversation.
Well, maybe that needs to go out in the notice saying, look, and if you intend, here's when this is happening, there's a public hearing is happening. You can speak, you may have a time limit on speaking. If you want to provide written testimony ahead of time, you need to do that within a certain time parameter prior to the hearing date. Those types of things maybe in the notice might be.
Yeah.
If there's a way, because like today, I was really frustrated about whatever this is, 8 pages of stuff that I
Yeah,
can't
so-
read.
Right.
And I don't want to read it while somebody else is talking.
know,
I mean,
no.
that feels rude, right? So
But we should
I'm
put a
trying to,
limit for
yeah,
this
it's got
type
to
of,
be, written
so
comments should be.
if you have comments to do about this application, please submit. Deadline is, 2 days before the public hearing, so we have time to receive that, because.
Even if it's a guideline, because we have restraints legally, you could say the guideline is to have your written comments in by.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
So,
advised to, you're advised to.
So,
Yeah.
but again, that's something we can discuss with
Yep.
the new attorney.
yeah, but let's do that, because when we can lead a horse to water, but we can't force them to
Yeah.
drink. We can invite the public to contact us. We can invite the public to provide us with written comments. We can invite all we want, and we cannot force them to do that. And they don't have to provide their public comments so that you could have them in your packets.
No, I
There's no
understand.
legal.
Well, again, I guess I want to be sure that's the case, because we used to do it all the time, and we would say that written comments had to be provided by a date
Yeah.
certain. If they came after that, there was an automatic response that our attorneys revetted that said the date for written comments was due on this, but any additional comments can be shared in person at the meeting. And you either provide them ahead of time by a date that's consistent with everybody, or come to the meeting. So we didn't have the hour before. It's hard for, and again, it's not that I'm trying to cut off public comment. Obviously, my concern's the opposite. I want to have the time to actually read, understand, think, go visit the detention pond,
Yeah.
follow up on some of these, but you get it the night of the meeting. And I'm not blaming staff. I know you guys just got them.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it could
the
be
date-
part
the
of
dates
what
are
we
on the
work to
email,
make
yeah.
us more effective for the residents that may have concerns.
Yeah, and that's.
No, they
and-
received them today.
And maybe those are all, let's keep a list of those things to talk to the
Yeah.
attorney about, because I'm wondering, is there, okay, so this is my training, right? Is there a way to put, that you can advise people of these without saying that they have, that this is hard and fast, so that as a CYA measure from a legal standpoint, and I kind of want to hear what the attorney has to say about that.
Yeah.
That way it's difficult to say, well, we didn't know, it's a kangaroo report because you only gave me 3 minutes, I didn't know I had to do this or provide this ahead of time or whatever, they didn't review it. This way they have notice of how this should work and advice about how to do that.
Yeah, so what we need to try to do is to avoid surprises during the hearing.
Yes.
So they know exactly how it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And if they want to do something, it's not sending an email the same day, that doesn't work. So kind of a guidance of what to do and how it's gonna happen. And that should be on the website somewhere. But again, as you said, and this is something that we need to talk with the attorney, because it has to be surrounded by legal rules that we have to respect.
And it also then requires people to read.
It does
Yeah,
require
but
them
if,
to read.
well, in that case, if they don't want to read, this is not our problem. If
Yeah.
they didn't read.
Yeah, they were given
you
the
know,
opportunity.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, when the emails come in, you bounce and say, unfortunately, the time for written
Well-
comments expired at ever. However, there'll be an opportunity for 3 minutes of oral at the meeting, and encourage you to share your thoughts
Well,
there.
or just send back the rules of, or the document that explains how it's gonna.
I'm thinking it's CYA, to me, it's all CYA in a sense, because if you do that, if you put that on the website, if it's in the card that they receive, the
Yeah.
postcard they receive, it's hard to say either you didn't have the opportunity to know, or that you didn't know because you didn't read, I mean, I think it's a difficult argument. But it's an easy argument if you don't tell them that ahead of time. And say, well, they're just trying to rig things because they didn't tell us we had to do X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean? I just think it's.
We're never going to please everybody.
No.
Right.
But it's a
No.
PR, it's a good PR thing, I think. But obviously, that's up to the trustees,
I agree with Ann that you can't force people to give this commission, this planning meeting a bunch of courtesy, that they're gonna do what they're gonna do. If somebody would have had something of substance in here, somebody on staff read these ahead of time, right? Before us, so one of you all would have said something, I would guess. If there was if there was a clear code issue that was a black and white issue, it would have caught one of your attention, I'm assuming.
And it likely would have caught our eye well before we came.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there've
it's-
only been a couple circumstances where you all have recommended
Right.
declining, and it's because they wanted to go to the hearing anyways. I think
Yeah.
like that
Well,
was, yeah.
I think what we're talking about is something that is just, and again, we can talk to our attorney about that and see what they think about that. But I think it is a way to alleviate some of the issues, at least in an attempt to tell people what they are supposed to do. Anyway, all right, let me ask again. Is there anything else as far as any expectations for like a new commissioner coming in that we would want to put on some type of list? And like I said, Ton, I loved that list that you had on the screen. Maybe we can start with that and add a few things for like a new commissioner guidance list or something.
Yeah, I like even the town attorney Erin, when I asked her about like sentiment versus like code, like just things like that. Like, hey, like when they come up to comment, all you can consider is code. You can't consider sentiment. Like just some like again legal
Some
expectations.
guidelines.
I think that would be a good idea.
So maybe that's something we can work together. I'm happy to sit down with you too. I know you don't have it. And Bella, when you have time, and we can start with maybe what Ton outlined, and maybe we can put that into some guidelines. Commissioners to look at that. I think it would really help with new commission. It would help when we're interviewing people for the position to have that, so that each person that's interviewing has those, so they can ask questions that are expectations. All right. I know we spent a lot of time on it, but it was a good discussion, very good discussion.
Yeah, because, I mean, we all felt the frustration of today of something was not happening. I mean, going extremely smooth, so there's improvement to be done on this. I think so.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily like anything didn't happen that shouldn't happen, or that this filing wouldn't come through. But like just being able to, when they say something, they've got 5 pages of email, 3 minutes, and just like kind of ramble through it real quick.
Yeah.
Even being able to just be like, hey, I have a question for you after your comment. Like, what did you mean by this? Give them a chance to actually like dig into that. But
Well, I think with
Good
that, again, we
process,
got to talk to, because we don't want it, this
Yeah.
can't turn into a
That's a
debate
slippery
where
slope,
we're-
I think.
Where we're having a dialogue or we'll never get it.
Yeah, that gets to be a real slippery slope, and I struggle with that sometimes.
I do
Even at
too,
the
but-
beginning of, how do we do that in a way that doesn't create that debate? Yeah, it's a difficult thing. But, all right, so, anything else before we go to number 7, which is our, what's that, ordinance 1376?
Okay, so this is really, are we moving on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is where a lot of your time is going to be spent. And so we're not going to go into detail. I just wanted to give, again, an overview of what these different subsections of Section 5 is. And again, Section 5, this is the new, in Chapter 30, that's the Land Use Code, Section 5 is subdivision and land use. So, again, this is a reminder. I've made notes for myself in the margin, so I have to read these. So, that first, it's labeled intent. We're going to change this. They're not really intent statements. It's just the first section, subsection of every section. So we have the general section as one, and then we have a design section, we have the oil and gas section, we have the telecommunications section. Every section has a subsection, and that first subsection is an intent subsection. So rather than calling these intent statements, we're going to actually refer to them as what they are, and they are development regulations. It's even called out in the 3rd line. It states the regulations contained in this section shall be known and cited as the Berthoud subdivision and development regulations. And then it lists what those are. And we've grouped them together tonight. I think there are, 5, 6, 7 of them, and they're grouped together. Sometimes it's not going to be applicable. If we say, federal permitting, we might not need a federal permitting. If we do, we'll let you know what that is. However, these are not optional. This is how every development has to comply with all of those things. It's not optional. Somebody can't say, well, I intend to meet this way. No, you're not intending to meet this, you shall do this. So we will work on the verbiage for that, just so it is clear that this isn't in meeting an intent, this is you shall do. Then in the next section, in 102, let me scrolly down there. These are general procedures. So again, here, this is just saying, these are general procedures for the development and the division of land, unless a project receives vesting, and that's only for a use by special review and a final plat. If the project does not proceed forward within 12 months of the date of the approving resolution, the ordinance of the notice of the decision, the applicant shall be automatically voided. So for example, should Fickle Farms' 5th preliminary plat get approved by the town board of trustees, and they don't proceed with the final plat within a year, it's done. They then need to do another preliminary plat in 12 months. So applicants also shall provide the town with finalized documents within 30 days of the final public hearing or the date found on the notice of decision for administrative approvals. So again, if Fickle Farms preliminary plat is approved by the town board of trustees, they have 30 days to get TON, the Mylars for recording. And the reason why we're doing this is we have a lot of legacy projects that were left over by our predecessors that aren't recorded because they didn't do their conditions of approval. This is also why we don't bring anything to you that has a condition of approval, because sometimes those conditions of approval are going to take years to meet the condition of approval. Well, they're not ready then to have development approval if something's going to take a long time to meet that condition. So they're not ready, they don't come, they don't get approval, and they need to bring us their final documents within 30 days for recording. And if they don't do that, then, or if they don't then proceed forward with that next step, after 12 months, it's done. Because what's happened then is we have all these old projects then that could come forward and they don't even meet current code then. Okay, moving forward then with application processes. It used to be a really long table. And now what we've done is we've reduced the table, and now we have long narrative that explains precisely what's required. And then moving on to the next section. So we have a nice big old table now for processing as well. And then we have the subdivision application materials. Again, he had 10 pages of tables, and they were really very difficult to use. And so now we have a very simple table, and we have a very robust explanation of what the materials are, instead of everything in a table that was very difficult to understand.
I love that table.
It's very simple.
Yeah, it makes it really easy.
Yep, and then, so that's for all the subdivisions, and then we do the same thing for the land use permits. We now also have very simple tables that everybody needs to do for the water calculation, and our water attorney approved this table as well. So every new development's gonna have this little water hydrozone analysis, and they just put it in. There's no messing around. We know exactly what the water calculation needs to be. Then we go to subdivision types. For example, every subdivision, we just start off saying, For all subdivision, the following applies. The application process, refer to the land use process table. Public notice, refer to the notice table. Application materials, refer to the application materials table. The criteria for approval, refer to the intent section, which is 101, as well as any additional criteria for approval in each individual application type found. Now, right now, we don't have additional criteria for approval. They're all in that section 101. However, this leaves it open should we ever want to have something that's specific to an application type, we could create it. And then it goes into the different types of application. If there's something for a minor subdivision, something for a neighborhood master plan, something for the preliminary plat, something for the final plat, we can go ahead and do those very specific items there. Then we're going to go into, then I believe, the land use section. And so that's the same thing. Oh, then we have administrative adjustments. So that just provides anything that could be done administratively. If somebody says, ooh, you know, I used to have 3 lots, I just want 2 now. Or I need to adjust this lot here and it doesn't impact anything, but I need to make an adjustment. We can do those without going back through the public hearing process if they're minor adjustments. Then land use application materials, again, sections 107 and 108. They're just listing the type of land use application. It's providing a pretty simple table, and then narrative materials. And some of the materials are exactly the same in subdivisions. We've just changed them a little bit. And then accessory uses and structures, we are no longer regulating from the definition section. Instead, we've created all of this and put them in the accessory uses and structures section. We have subsection E addresses accessory dwelling units. There's a subsection now on home occupations, and then one on storage buildings and detached garages. And then there's, in 110, there's rules about the Board of Adjustment, which is you all, occasionally, maybe once or twice a year. And then there's a section 111 on development agreements, kind of the purpose of a development agreement. And that's something that does not go to the town trustees or the planning commission. It's a form that the town attorney drafted and has approved so that we work it out during the final plat process. We'll determine what are those off-site improvements that are needed. We get the engineering cost estimates. Our engineering team is reviewing those, making sure they're correct. They have to post a bond or a letter of credit or put up cash or something so that we collect that, and we're inspecting through the process. When they get to a certain phase, and that we're releasing a portion of that surety, so that if that developer would go bankrupt or leave, we would have surety to come in and fix a problem. And then,
Sorry, how do you keep track of every subdivision in the whole town and when all these deadlines?
in enters Bella. So when I started, I had a spreadsheet that I tracked. And then Bella had to recreate it because we had another staff member that when they left and they were angry, they destroyed it. So Bella recreated it, and we have these 2 books called, they're bond books, 3 now. And we just keep track. And you want to tell them your process?
Sure. It was several days of cataloging documents kept in the 3 big binders that are kept in the vault. Now it's a very large spreadsheet that we keep track of on a monthly basis. What is coming due to expire during the next 6 months. We keep notes on what the surety is for, if there are other additional outstanding items. We review that then with our construction observer and our town engineer and our community development department and ensure that those sureties are kept up to date and then released when they need to be.
And right now, when a surety is coming within 6 months of expiration, then I'm working with the developer to make sure that those bonds and letters of credit are staying consistent. Sometimes we'll get a developer that says, oh, I'm really, really close. And I'll say, well, that's great. Why don't you then perform so that we can get this closed? And if they're getting 4 months out, then I just turn it on over to the attorney and say they're not giving us the surety that we need. You now need to get them to perform or give us the letter of credit so that we're not left without anything. Because when I did come on board, I found a lot of letters of credit and bonds that had expired, and so we had nothing to fall back on. And now we're just managing it a lot better.
So Bella, I mean, you're like going crazy with Power BI and Alteryx.
It's a
Becoming-
fun administrative tracking exercise.
Yeah, yeah, so it's good. And eventually Luke's team, once they build it, that's something that Luke's team will manage as well. And we're just bridging the gap. Then we go to pre-construction activities and responsibilities. So again, we want to make sure that once you have approval of a subdivision or a land use permit, you understand what those, when you want to call for your pre-construction meeting, what those obligations are, the signage you have to post on site, paying for water, what you need to do, all the inspections. We want to, again, full transparency. And then certification blocks used to only be in the final plat section of the code. And Ton took a lot of time to scrub these up, so now they're just in one section of the code, and they're all very consistent now, and there should be absolutely no questions. So again, I want you to have this in your packets, so if you have any questions, if you see something that's wonky, again, even though we spent several months on this, I am 100% certain we have overlooked something. So if there's language that's confusing still, please let us know. We're not going to jump in and make the changes. We'll probably collect things over the year and maybe early next year go in and scrub some things up. So
Just the only one I saw was just that one item I pointed out to you guys the other day, which again, I still don't get how that even fits in, but but yeah, once we talk to the attorney, I would love to find out whether that's just in the wrong place. Is there some other reason for that?
or interpretation.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It was an item, folks, that was in the area on Board of Adjustments, and it's talked about when basically the town board can, and what types of things they can supersede the Board of Adjustments, and there's one area there that just didn't make sense.
Yep, we'll take a look at that. All right, so that's it.
All right.
All right.
That was a good meeting.
All right, so that takes us, unless there's questions about that ordinance. Good. If not, then that takes us to staff reports.
Yep, so since we last met, there have been no town board of trustees meetings. There will be one next week on the 13th. Historic Preservation Commission meets on the 12th. Town trustees meet on the 13th. There's several items going on the 13th. We have no land use hearings, no need for the Planning Commission to meet on the 22nd. There will be, the next time Planning Commission would meet then would be on the 12th of February. And we have the Comprehensive Plan Action Plan report card to present to you, the Housing Diversity Plan report card to present to you. Water in the Comprehensive Plan is a requirement by state statute, and Lakin Dixon, we have an intern. She has been working with the state on that, and she will be presenting that to you as well. And we may have a land use case that night. Is that true?
We put all those things on one night?
Yep, all those things on one night.
So you know I will not be there.
I've got you down.
Because he's going to be busy getting Belgian chocolate for us. for
We're
the
doing
next meeting
chocolates
after
around the
that.
world right now. Theme
Chocolates
of the
around
year.
the world. We're like,
Yeah.
No, well, it's probably a mistake doing that because once you taste it, you cannot eat it.
you never have other chocolates again.
Maybe Nick will bring back some
Maybe we could do
Antarctic
chocolate around Belgium and you could just go from town to town and buy different chocolates.
Here's Aunt.
True. And then we can go to beers.
The 2 report cards honestly should not take very long, so.
So you're thinking there may be a land use case there?
About the 26th.
And then on the 26th, there could be, or is that going to be the land use case? I think that's gonna be the land use case. Yep, 26th land use case, and then the other is just the action 2 report cards and the comprehensive plan, and the land use cases on the 26th.
Okay.
And I'm
Yep.
not here on the 26th.
Yep, got that on here.
Easy. No.
So I think we should have more time for everything.
Yes,
There you
yep.
go.
Yep, so the 12th will be a little bit lighter. The 26th, there is a land use case. I don't think there could be another land use case, but if there is, it'd be on that night.
Okay. We will prepare. All right, so no meeting on the, just to reiterate, no meeting on the January 22nd. We will have a meeting on February 12th and a meeting on February 26th. 26th most likely will have a land use item. All right. Board of Trustees aren't reviewing anything that we've done on their, in their next meeting. Which is the 13th.
Let's see. On their next meeting, they are not, they are, Ton has put out an RFP for a consultant to do art. Do you want to explain that?
Oh, I'd love to hear about that. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's very exciting. So we did publish a request for proposals at the end of, wait, what month are we in?
January.
It would have been November. Thank you. Like, yeah, so we got a really great response for a public art master plan, and essentially to start and lay the foundation for additional public art in the town of Berthoud.
Wonderful.
We got, like I said, a really amazing response. We received 9 proposals, which is very good. Out of those 9, we selected 2 to move into interviews with planning staff, and of that, we then selected a firm. And so we will presenting that as a consent agenda on Tuesday's hearing next week to the town board of trustees to hopefully approve us moving forward with that contract. And so then once that's approved, we can certainly give you all the lowdown. And the idea is that we would do a kickoff in February. I'm not sure what that will look like, so we'll be leaning on the consultant, likely staff introductions, trying to figure out stakeholders. And then, of course, there's a public art inventory that we expect out of this. And so they'll go around town and inventory what we do have currently.
The walruses.
And then, yep.
I get a lot of questions about those.
Rancher's wife,
yeah.
right, got the mural.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully start to get some rain on our public art, and then a path forward to start incorporating additional art, a whole variety into
Let
the
me
town.
ask about that. You know, in other cities that I've lived in where I've sat on the planning commission, for example, they will designate a certain new percentage of that project has to have money for some type of public art installation. Is that the thought going forward, is to do something like that?
So that is what the public art master plan process will help us determine. And so it's everything from they'll help us locate potential sites for new public art, types of different art. So that will be part of our public engagement, is what would the public like to see art installation wise. And then determining, how do we want to go about this? How do we go about selecting artists? Do we have multiple ways depending on the project? Do we do any kind of temporary installations? And then funding resources, whether it's grants, yes, maybe developments have to now contribute either art or potentially financial contribution. So we'll look at all of that. So they'll really help us solidify not only our vision and our goal with this program, but then how do we move forward well into the future on all of those components.
Very exciting to me.
Yeah, it is very exciting.
Because we're so lucky to have so many artists and artisans in this area.
Mhm.
Wonderful, to be able to incorporate more of their art in what we're doing.
Absolutely, and hopefully out of this too, we'll get a list of those artists that may be local, and we'll be working with like Wildfire Arts and coordinating in the Bajas and another organization. So hopefully they'll be our stakeholders in this. The exciting thing too is that as part of this code update that just recently was approved, we did up the requirements within our development code for subdivision identity element requirements to now, or was it park requirements? It's one of those, both of them. We now require the addition of art. So instead of being an option, it is now required that developments will, as part of the neighborhood master plan moving forward, provide art as part of their subdivision.
In their pocket park or wherever that is.
Correct, yep.
Yep. Loving that. That's
Yeah.
I just think, we have, like I said, we have such a richness of artists in the area, and to be able to showcase what we have here, it's so special. It's wonderful. I love that whole idea. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think so far, from the kind of the kickoff in an essence that we did at the craft fair over the holiday was really good.
What from that, because you did that survey where people put different the little things in the jars or whatever.
Oh, that was the different one. We did boards for the art, and they were dots on different types of art.
Okay, that was it.
And then we asked 2 different questions. When it came to the different types of art, I think it was pretty much across the board. Everybody would just like to see different varieties of art and more of what we currently have. And then what was one of the? I can't think of the other question. One of them had to do with if should we have like an overall vision and consistency between all of our art. That was kind of, I think, back and forth on that one. What was the other question?
Where?
Was it where?
Where?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, we got some good feedback.
Good feedback on that.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the other thing, sorry, Ann. The other thing is that we are doing my brain's turning off, I'm sorry. Stephanie Horvath, with, what is her title?
Well, she's a downtown engagement coordinator, and she's also like our public information officer.
Yes.
Community engagement manager.
Yeah.
I think is her
And so
formal title.
she is having an open house for the community on the 21st. It's a Wednesday.
Yes.
Put it in my
21st.
Yes, and we are expecting, we are hoping and working with her is that the idea is maybe we'll do those boards again and be present for that, just kind of there with the presence, but nothing too loud, or just to capture whoever shows up for the open house. We can ask the same questions and get a little bit more feedback. And then we'll have an official kickoff with a consulting firm and make it more public.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Any other reports like that? No? All right, so if not, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I have a second.
And we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Hi.
Aye.